Hey guys, I am DM Zone. This is the Gamers Oasis. We're going to talk about Demi Humans and BX D&D. Okay, we're going to talk about Demi Humans. Demi Humans in general are three races in BX. There were in some of the supplements for Blackmore and for Greyhawk. There were other races like the half elf and the half orc that came out and that type of stuff. And some people even have played retro clones or clones in BX where you can play a gnome. But the core book has three. It has the dwarf, it has the elf, and it has the halfling. All three of these have different varying levels of pride and culture and that type of stuff. All three of them tend to be more Tolkien than the humans that you find in this game, and even those could be considered more Tolkien type humans than in some other genres of books that were wrote from back then. But that's just because I think that book was a very successful book and it flavored a lot of how the fantasy was during that period of time. You can have elves and dwarves and halflings however you want, but here are some of the things that link them together. Surprisingly, dwarfs, elves, and halflings all live in family groups called clans. They all have their strongholds of various types. Elves have woodland strongholds, halflings have shires, and dwarves have underground strongholds. They're all very specific, they're all very unique to that race. And the elves have an extra benefit of it doesn't matter what level they are. They get it at any level as long as they can afford the cost of doing it. When they get to max level, they become sort of the authority in the area. And I don't think that's necessarily I'm the biggest, I'm the baddest, but I think halflings tend to follow those with experience and those who are wizened and make better choices and that type of stuff. And eighth level of halfling probably makes more and better decisions than someone who's never been in combat, never faced a dragon potentially. Though halflings may never face dragons excuse me, you get the general idea. Dwarves are the highest level of all the different types. They get their underground stronghold at 9th level though. So they get their stronghold at 9, but their max level is 12. I'm sorry, I had a little bit of a brain fart there. Elves get their stronghold at 9, which is earlier than a magic user gets their tower, but their stronghold is more of a woodland retreat, I guess you could say, type of thing. Woodland stronghold. And their max level is 10. One of the other interesting things about the strongholds is they tend to have extra benefit or whatever. I won't say necessarily there's a magical benefit to it, but shires tend to be in pleasant areas and be lush and serene and that type of stuff. A place you might go and relax, and the food is generally good. And one could say that is the magic of the halflings, or one could just say they pick good locations that no one else for some reason wants. I don't know why that would be, but I think there's some sort of magic in there that might be unspoke of, shall we say. Dwarves like the seclusion and the being alone and away from other people. They allow others into portions of their area, but probably not the entirety of it. And they don't tend to run into normal problems that a lot of places. Their places tend to cost more to build because they're basically made out of stone, where elves build everything out of wood, but they still cost as much as stone does because they're so well built. Also, elves work so closely with nature that for 5 miles radius around their woodland hideout or fort or whatever you want to call it, retreat, the animals are more friendly to them and convey messages and that type of stuff. And the DM will describe, or the referee will describe, the level of interaction they might have. That's why when you go into an elven forest, they tend to know more about things than maybe they should, is because of that type of stuff. But let me get into each class a little bit more specifically. All right, so dwarves are very akin to fighters. When I first read this, I actually thought they were considered fighters. In many ways, they are. They can set spear, they can use lances and that type of stuff, if I'm not mistaken. but they can do that type of stuff, but they get slightly better save throws than a fighter. They have a few other special ability, like they can notice the distinctions between new and old construction, and can find secret passageways that have been added to a dungeon or an area after the original construction was done. They also can detect slopes, so they know when they're going down a level in case your DM's trying to be super sneaky and have you go from first level to third level and skip second level, or go to second level and you not know it. Because in this version of D&D, what level of dungeon you are on, whether it's by sneak or literal going down a flight of stairs or falling in a pit, determines greatly to the wandering monster encounter you can run into, or what might be literally housed in there, shall we say. And those are very important things. Both elves and dwarves get night vision, or infravision. They see warmth, essentially, and they got that out to 60 feet. Both dwarves and elves also tend to only hire from their own for mercenaries, but for specialists they would hire or get retainers from other races. One of the last things with dwarves is that they are a D8 hit points, just like a fighter is. Elves, which can be either fighter-like or magic user-like, though they don't really follow the exact class. They can cast spells like a magic user. They can brace with a spear like a fighter. They only get these 6 hit points because of the ability of being sort of both, and they have to choose the beginning of the adventure or the campaign, or whatever your storyteller, or whatever you want to call them, referee, storyteller, GM, DM, whatever they determine you need the most amount of time you need to do it, whether it's beginning of the campaign, the beginning of today's adventure, before you enter a dungeon. The elf can choose whether they want to be more melee or they want to be a magic user, okay? Or not necessarily more melee, a fighter type or a magic user type. Elves also have the ability to resist paralyzation better than others. They have like they fail their paralyzation on a 1 or 2, where normally it's way higher than that. Now lastly, we have the tail end of everything is the halfling. Halflings tend to have to need weapons that are cut down for them, or armor that is reshaped to fit them, because they're so small and their bodies are not the same shape as other things. If you were to scale down a small human, like a child, they would not be the shape of a halfling. They're more rotund than that. So they need something close to a dwarf, but not quite as big as a dwarf. So they have to have everything reshaped, resized to them. That makes magic armor exceptionally hard to find, and they need in any sort of special metal to be even harder to work with, because generally it requires more effort to work with this special metal or leather or whatever the case might be. They have better save throws, much like a dwarf. Unlike a dwarf, though, they get these 6 hit points, so they're kind of in the elf range for that. They do have some ability to hide like a thief can. Their hiding is more in nature versus in dungeons. In nature is like they're only seen at 10% of the time, whereas in a dungeon they're seen on a 1 or a 2, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, a 1 or 2 and a D6. It's a really good chance to hide, but it is 3 times the amount, because it's 16% per point on a D6, so that's 32% chance of being seen in a dungeon or outside of like nature, if you get what I'm saying with that. Halflings are one of the few that have a sort of minimum stat. They have to have a 9 and at least a 9 in Constitution and in Dexterity. They get a bonus to range weapon, and they get a negative to be hit while fighting things that are larger than human. So ogres, giants, dragons, that type of stuff, because they are so small. So in this version of the game, or I guess in this way, they didn't really have size category, but because halflings are what they are and the way they fight, they gave them a bonus like you would see in later editions of the game. Not that I want to get too much into that. I'm not sure if I said it yet, but halflings have a max level of 8 level, making them the lowest and the cheapest XP cost to reach max level of any of the Demi Humans or classes in the game. if you want to know more about this, I'm going to go into a deeper delve into all of the races and everything of that nature when I get a chance to play it or see them played, and then see how they are in each individual module, so I can kind of go into it in more depth why they would be a mainstay. I can tell you that my understanding is halflings are not near as cool as they sound on paperwork, that in actual gameplay they tend to be disliked and no one really wants them in the group because they do stuff kind of like a thief, but then they don't, disarm traps. They do stuff kind of like a fighter, but they don't have a D8 hit points, and everything has to be specially made. So while you would think, wow, there's a lot of cool flavor and fluff in here, it's more of a trap. But I won't know that until someone plays it, or I play a halfling myself, and we see how that works. I can tell you that the world is huge in comparison, in my opinion. And I have seen a lot of people play dwarves, and they tend to really like it. I think it's that bonus to magic saves and that type of stuff while being basically a fighter. And I can tell you that most people like elves, especially when you're not starting at first level and you've got a few levels under your belt. Because later game, the elves probably become the most powerful thing in the game, except for maybe a near max or max level magic user. But this is BXD&D. If you see third level, you're doing pretty doggone good. So take that into consideration. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys watch this whole video. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything I missed or I got wrong or anything I need to restate. Know that I'm going to go into this in greater depth. If there's something that you feel like I should learn or know more about, please let me know down in the comments. You can find me on Facebook. I'll talk about these videos and that type of stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and be running in the search of the unknown, and I'm going to be doing the rest of the B series. It's not necessarily going to be in order. I'm probably going to be doing it based upon this module works very well with some other module, and then I'll run those two together, and then I'll be, 5th, 6th level, I'm guessing, hopefully somewhere in that ballpark, maybe a little less. And then when I get to that point where there's fewer modules, then I'll go and I'll make a brand new group or characters, not necessarily players, and then we'll do it again, and then we'll do it again, and we'll kind of run these piggyback off each other and like in the same area, and then we'll go ahead and see what you guys think. And then the ones that can be done at higher level, I'll probably save those for last, and people will pick the characters they want to play, and maybe they'll be the same ones we know from before, and we'll get back in there and take these characters on up even higher. And who knows, maybe someday we'll have a max level character in these different things, and we can talk specifically about that. Anyways, that's kind of where I'm thinking this will go for right now. I at least want to run the B series, all 12 modules plus the solo. I'll probably do the solo, just me and you. We'll sit there and play it and have fun, and we'll go from there. Alright guys, so thank you for watching. Hit the bell and keep rolling those dice.